This is Chris Hansen.
Chad doing Rip City Radio here.
It's your favorite basketball player, Tyler Hansbrough.
This is Jamie Hudson.
This is TJ Houshmandzadeh.
And I'm going to let y'all know something.
Duke sucks and Duke will always suck.
You're listening to
It Just Makes Sense.
It just makes sense.
We are sports. We are nostalgia. We are pop culture. And we're funny sometimes.
I think overall we're just a good time.
They thought we couldn't do it. But guess what?
We're back.
Podcasts are free, and we can do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
We never knew what we were doing in the first place.
Yeah, that is a good point.
We love hearing the sound of our own voices at this point.
Finally, we did it. We conquered the demons. We have won.
It took 18 weeks. We never even addressed that Lamar could be the bad it guy. I think it's preparation, I think it's planning, and I think it's him folding under the bright lights. That's the difference between a team like the Ravens and knowing that you have a Mahomes. He has never shown that he could be a bad it guy. And who are
Speaking
we
of
to
losing,
call people out on losing bets, okay? We suck at betting.
And remember, don't be afraid to fade yourself.
the space between our broken hearts. Braxton, where are you?
Can we just have like a, what do you call that? When they have like Tupac at a concert?
Like a hologram?
A hologram. We should have a hologram of Braxton.
Where are
Where
you?
he normally doesn't sit.
Yeah.
Like right in the fucking middle.
This is nice having a little microphone stand. I like this. We're so far apart we can't even touch. Because every time we touch, that's where we're at here.
Because for the people who never watch the videos, like typically we do.
Yeah.
We're always touching.
When we have three big man certified people on a tiny little couch here, sectional, we're kind of touching always.
Yeah.
We're that close.
When Caleb was here, it was pretty.
That was a little.
It was close.
That was a little. That's nice. You know,
We should do 2 guests. See, we can do 5. 5 dudes on the couch.
Like, at what point do we need risers within the couch itself, or we have like a little guy like off stage, like a late night show where you just have a little sidekick?
It's what's his name? Conan's guy.
Andy Richter.
Andy, yeah.
Andy Ricker.
There's and they have the guy that's playing the keyboard. So we have a guy that does a sound effect.
Jean
like
Baptiste and the boys. We could really get real high budget here in this here garage.
By high budget, having the keyboard guy with a kid like Brody's drum set.
I know, like every time that I end up trying to make a joke, it's just like terrible percussion. That's what it amounts to. No Braxton this week on It Just Makes Sense. The first solo edition with Juan Magoo and I and me. Braxton and I did a solo edition at the golf course that one time. We were drinking beers and they turned the sprinkler system out on us. That was great.
You guys have also done a
course.
solo without me in studio.
No, we had Alex that one time. I don't think we've ever been in studio with just he and I. Pretty sure. So this is like a first studio edition of solo.
There was 2 times last year. So the Maui one.
Mm-hmm.
There was one time where you guys were in studio. Alex was just there for one of them.
Okay, maybe you're right.
I think Alex was there with the one where I was in Mexico last March.
Yeah.
But the Maui one, it was just you two, because that's when fucking bocce ball guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it was
Mario.
just you two. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mario Pompey.
Well, I mean, it seems kind of fitting that Braxton won't be on this episode. He is enjoying himself in Cancun, Mexico, perhaps a little bit too much. We already know a story that he wants to tell. We're not going to do that for him.
Yeah, well,
we need,
let him tell
We need further context, because when he sent that text today I asked him, I was like, "Are you just making conversation, or did you actually do this?" He was like, "No, this actually happened."
It would actually be weirder if he was just making conversation, and that's the topic you resort to.
Well, so the whole thing is, and it might give it away a little bit, is that like you had asked this hypothetical about like how many times do you think you sneeze versus sharding and everything. What was the whole precipice of this?
No, it was last episode. Would you rather have
BO
for the rest of your life for $100 million or shart every time you sneeze?
Yeah, shart every time. And so I was like, oh, I don't really sneeze that much. And you asked me, how much do you think you sneeze in a week? And so actually this week I've been a little bit under the weather. I've had this cough. It's still lingering from last week. You heard me, last week just, yakking on the pod. But 13 times I sneezed this past week. So it would have been 13 sharts for me. But so
when you thought you were gonna do it like barely in 52 weeks,
right? Yeah,
like,
I was
like,
maybe
nothing.
once a week, whatever. But no, I was like, so then when Braxton said this, I was like, oh, I've been talking about sharding, and he was,
small T's.
Yeah. So
small T's. That's
way.
a dog breed. Small T's.
Yeah. But so we hope he's having a grand old time. Mexico sounds pretty good about now. Although I am wearing shorts today.
We've hit from the ice storm. We've hit 60s.
Yeah, we went from like feels like 5 degrees out to like actual sunny and 60. So who knows what the hell is going on here. But a Braxton list. This is the perfect time for us to see
roast the shit out of him,
and then also like, I wonder if he'll actually listen to this week's episode. I wonder if he's got the FOMO, if he's like wondering what we say about him.
He'll listen on the flight back home. I'm sure he will.
Yeah, he does.
You would hope at least he listens to his own fucking podcast.
Please.
Always
listen
promoting other podcasts.
Yeah.
Like, you listen to your own?
Yeah, it's like, oh, that Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce, but real good. But if you listen to your own. But I guess it's like when you do it, do you, I listen back to it because, like, obviously I'm editing it and such.
I've listened to every episode we've ever released.
Yeah.
Every single. And some of them I've listened like 2 or 3 times.
Multiple times, yeah. We love hearing the sound of our own voices at this point. But let's see. So we just had a very successful football day where we were out at the fantasy football group. You guys tried to okie doke me, though, which I didn't appreciate. So more on that in a second. But we had our fantasy football group. We watched both games. We'll get into the games in a second. Potluck was awesome. But then it was like, oh, well, the guy who lost the league isn't here to do the punishment. So then everyone was trying to like hold a vote as to whether or not I should be the one to do the punishment, which
honestly, I did say I was on board for it because why not? But all of the bitterness is coming from the champion.
Yeah.
And all fantasy and like everything about fantasy football. He won, but nobody likes that he won.
Yeah. He won 500, and he comes in and he beats like everyone else.
But he's the commissioner. Yeah. We've also, accused him of rigging the league or whatever. So I feel like all the salty feelings are coming from him. It was like, oh yeah, why not punish someone? I didn't feel like I won because no one's congratulating me on the victory.
Yeah.
Not even his own wife is congratulating him.
Yeah, I know. It's true that Jared didn't even congratulate him on the win. And they were going up against each other in the championship, obviously. But, yeah, so... And that...
It's not that bad of a punishment.
It's not
I feel
that bad
like
of
you
a
might
punishment.
enjoy it, and we'll be out there anyway.
Right. I mean, like, to go to dinner with a gigantic stuffed animal by myself might be a nice break away from things. There are people who are kind of into shit like that, but whatever.
But think about the other fantasy punishments we've seen around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like standing like half naked outside with a sign that says I suck at fantasy.
Right.
Or like doing a beer mile.
Oh, God.
That would be fucking horrible.
That would be terrible. Then you have the Waffle House, 24 hours in a Waffle House. You can eliminate some of your time by eating pancakes or waffles.
And you're not easily embarrassed. It's not like there's other ones that will punish you and like give you bubble guts or like make you sick.
Sure.
This is just kind of like, Oh, look at that weirdo with a stuffed animal.
There have been a lot of people on TikTok this last month or two. It's like, oh, I lost fantasy, so I have to do 30 days of going viral on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's those types of people.
If you're willing to take it on, I don't think it's that bad, but I just think it's funny that he's pissed.
Yeah.
It might be better to not, like, grant his wishes. Just to, like,
yeah.
really
don't placate to him.
This is going to be the worst year of your life as a fucking champion because we're not going to give you the satisfaction.
Exactly. Yeah, like, don't even come at us with this, you invalid commissioner. But anyways, I wanted to bring this up. You were influenced, whether or not you realized it. I thought it was hilarious. The past 2 weeks on the podcast, we had been talking about Applebees, and then no sooner do you text us on Friday night, I think it was, that you were at the very good old Applebees, the neighborhood bar and grill.
I said in the text, like, it's not, like, it might be because we've been talking about it, but I was the one who was standing up for Applebee's for all the fucking slander. Like, I didn't understand why people didn't like it. Now, it's not that good. It's the same as I fucking remember it. Riblets were, like, straight garbage.
That was sad to hear. That was really sad to hear because I was a big riblets guy. But I didn't know that you could, like, go through and do the trio of things.
Yeah, it was so my buddy and I were going to meet up, and he lives in Vancouver. We were going to go to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, let's just go to Applebee's instead. And I'm like, yeah, why not? We've been talking about it. And it's the $15, like, all-you-can-eat boneless wings and riblets and shrimp.
Sure.
Quality-wise, it's not that great, but it's $15. Like, go
Hard
and have a few beers and eat some boneless wings.
Yeah, when they see big men certified walking into that, you're getting your $15 worth, probably.
Absolutely.
Is Applebee's, like, where would you rank this level of all-you-can-eats versus, like, the all-you-can-eat shrimp or the shrimp fest and all of that? What is, like, the best food promotion out there when it comes to...
You know what I miss? And it doesn't exist anymore, but back in the day, I would assume it was also in Portland or nationwide, but in Vancouver, when I was 14, when we first moved here, Tony Roma's.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that restaurant?
Yeah, I never really went, but...
Tony Roma's had all-you-can-eat ribs. Not riblets, but all-you-can-eat ribs.
Dang.
So you'd get, like a quarter of a rack every time you asked for it.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the best one. Because, Applebee's, you get what you pay for. It's $15 of, like, shitty, like, chicken nuggets, essentially. The Red Lobster one, they're just hoping you eat the fucking biscuits and get full, so you stop ordering shrimp.
Sure. Okay, so then if you had to go, like, never-ending pasta bowl, shrimp fest, or this Applebee's trio thing, you had to eat it one time a day for a year, which one would you go for?
I had to eat it once a day for a whole year?
Once a day for a year.
And is it free?
Yeah.
Then at that point, you would not think about value. I think you'd think about quality.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have to go quality if you have to eat it all the time. I would probably go shrimp.
You would go shrimp, okay.
Just because, man, I'm already big. Like, what's everyday pasta going to do to me?
Yeah.
Everyday pasta would just fucking kill me.
Sure.
Applebee's would just be eating something fried every fucking day. And yet, like, there's not really an advantage to any of them because the shrimp would just be, like, covered in butter.
Mm-hmm.
But I would probably go the more expensive route, like how Asians do buffets and just do, like, what's expensive. I would go shrimp.
I think I would probably go never-ending pasta, and it would be because you would still get the salad and you would still get the breadsticks and everything. So at least, like, you could comp it up a little bit with, like, some roughage in there.
But, like, I'd go that route if one day I'm like, can I just do the salad just so I don't feel like I'm going to die?
Yeah.
But if I have to eat the pasta, I'm like, that might be a little much.
I know. And while I say that, I'm not like a huge carb, I'm a big carb guy, but yeah, like a big pasta guy. So
I'll do shrimp because I'd view it as like, let me just do keto for a year.
Be a pescatarian or something like that.
I would just eat fucking shrimp. No pasta, no rice, no nothing.
All day, every day.
God, you would, whatever you pick, you would never eat that again when that year's over.
Just that restaurant or that food?
That food, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it would ruin it for you.
That's true.
That much of it, like, I would never eat shrimp again. That sucks to hear, but for a year of just having nothing but shrimp, ugh.
I know, and you'd have to do it in restaurant, and it would be a real sad experience.
As much as I love Applebee's, that falls into the very last. Having nothing but boneless wings and
my gosh.
shitty riblets for a year.
Just app trios or whatever. No, thank you. No, thank you. So, as a perfect not good transition, there was something that came across my TikTok feed, which I thought was really funny. I'm sure that we've all done this, is that the tagline on this video was meant to send this to my friend and accidentally sent it to a guy that I used to have a crush on in college and haven't talked to in years. So that is the setup for this. What we're going to see on the screen here for our YouTube listeners is a girl who is singing into a camera, and she is totally cut. She looks like a member of the Blue Man Group. Let's watch.
The best thing about tonight's that we're not fighting. Could it be that we have been this way before?
And remember, she just sent this to a guy that she had a
You
crush
always
on.
thought that I was smarter. I may have failed, but I have loved you from the start. So hold your breath, because tonight will be the night that I
It's like
will
an Avatar.
fall for you.
Yeah, she does.
Over again, don't make me change my mind. I won't live to see another day. I swear it's true. Because a girl like you's impossible to find. You're impossible, so breathe.
God damn it.
Oh, shoot.
Yours to keep. And
right.
hold on to me.
It goes on for another minute after that, by
She
the
meant
way.
to send it to a friend.
Yeah.
She ended up sending it to a boy she
That
likes.
she had a crush on.
We've all sent a text
Mm-hmm.
to somebody we didn't mean to send a text message to. But something this specific, how could you
How do
not
you mess
check?
that up? Yeah.
Like, how could you not double check that
Yeah.
you're sending it to the right person?
I mean, everyone's accidentally got that accidental dick pic, right? That accidental Snapchat with all of the dicks. I'm not saying that one of us on this couch has ever done that by accident.
the worst part of, like, not a video like this, but like when you've messed up those text messages.
Yeah.
Like, I've done one that just made my insides crawl up somewhere. I felt so awkward and bad.
Yeah.
I was talking to a buddy about a girl that we were both friends with that he's currently seeing. And I was going back and forth with both of them, telling him everything she was saying to me.
Oh, yeah.
And I was doing screenshots and shit.
And you were sending it back and forth between...
Back and forth. And then I fucked up and I screenshotted her stuff to try and to send it to him.
And you sent it
and
back
I
to
sent
her.
it to her with what I said. And she just sent me the emoji face of, like, sad. And my goodness. I'm
no.
I'm so sorry. I feel like such a dickhole for this.
Yeah, I know. It's like to accidentally...
I felt so bad.
Yeah, I definitely remember doing that in high school, too, where it was like you're, like, shit-talking someone, and then you accidentally shit-talk the person you send that message to the person you were shit-talking.
The worst part is, like, if you were just an asshole saying vile shit like, oh, she's fucking crazy, that's still bad.
Yeah.
But that might be like, oh, you're just another guy being a fucking asshole. But the shit I was saying was, like, genuine. I was like, hey, I don't know about this girl, man. Like, she's I think she's got some deep-rooted issues.
Oh,
and all
no.
this shit. Like, it was shit that would stab you in the fucking heart. And she should not have seen that. And I felt so bad.
Oh,
so
boy.
fucking bad. Because I was addressing shit that was real. It wasn't like, oh, she's fucking nuts. Like, stay away from that. It was like, yeah, like
you were cutting deep on her.
Dude, it was deep. I felt so bad.
At official IJMS, has that ever happened to you? I'm curious to know people's stories because it's bound to have happened to everyone. I've never sent a Blue Man Group
this is
singing
nuts.
emo music. Yeah, maybe we'll hear a story time from this person and understand a little bit more about what got into her head.
Take
there.
her as a guess.
Yeah. But let's see. We do have our... You called it on the podcast this past week where you said, if we watch these games together, we will win the bet. A bet or all of our bets. And lo and behold...
We fucking won.
We fucking won a bet. Finally, we did it. We conquered the demons. We have won.
It took 18 weeks.
And a few weeks off to then get back around and get back on the horse and be confident, and lost most of our bets, but made
We're in the green.
But hey, and we won probably the longest odds one, right?
Yeah, it was the biggest one.
It was the biggest odds. 15 paid 206, I think it was. We had a few other ones, and we got a little cocky, and we placed another in-game bet for the Lions and 49ers game.
Yeah, I think all in all, we had placed 3 bets on the show.
So four, we were in for $20 each.
Yeah, we would 60 total, $20 each. We placed 3 on the show and 1 live, but we won 200.
Yeah.
So that's
plus 140.
That's
right?
65 each per person. So we tripled our money.
How about it?
And technically, because we don't bet that much, we made up like 50% of our losses from being 0-11.
How about it?
I'll take it.
And so the one that hit was the Zay Flowers and...
The anytime touchdowns.
Yeah, the anytime touchdowns.
1 from each team. So Zay Flowers, David Montgomery,
Yep.
Christian McCaffrey, and Isaiah Pacheco.
And Pacheco. So
they all hit in the first half.
that was wild. Yeah, it was incredible. And there was one where I thought that we had Jahmyr Gibbs turn out to be Jameson Williams, so that was a little bit of a false positive. But
Gibbs did score.
He did end up scoring.
Because the live one that we placed was also another anytime, and it was Laporta, Gibbs, and Debo.
Mm-hmm.
And Debo got close on that sweep. Gibbs scored in the first half, so we're like, oh, maybe there's a chance. The disappointing one was the underdog bet.
Yeah, it really was. And that was, I think, what was it, 15 to pay 89 or 136?
No, 15 to pay 136.
Yeah.
That was Lions and Chiefs winning.
For sure. And I mean, like,
It looked good.
Chiefs look good, and then you're up 24-7 there at halftime for the Lions, only to be outscored 27-3 or whatever the hell it was. Which game do you want to talk about first? The Chiefs? Do you want to go by in which it was played? I guess we can do that. So with the Chiefs dominating on defense, a relatively low-scoring affair. Basically, they dared Lamar Jackson to beat them, and he didn't. And so the Chiefs, yet again, in another Super Bowl, for all the people who absolutely hate Taylor Swift,
Get over it.
get over it. She's going to be on the screen for like a minute of like 4 hours.
I don't understand. Like, I know we've addressed this, but what is your problem with it?
Yeah, it's just hyper masculinity at its
What
finest. I
grown
think.
men have such a fucking problem with this that it's ruining football?
Yeah, because they do this stuff all the time with like Spike Lee at Knick games and Jack Nicholson or Nicholas at whichever one at the
Whether
Lakers
it's
games.
celebrities or normal fans, they pan over to someone after a score.
Yeah. Robert Kraft at Patriots games.
Yeah, we're not just staring at Travis Kelce the whole time, even before Taylor Swift. What about her is annoying people so much?
The fact that she is so powerful and she is a woman.
If anything, if you cared about the league, it's so good for the league.
Yeah, really
She is generating fucking money in all different parts of the NFL.
Yeah, and imagine all the people now who are not irritated at their spouses for watching football because now they also want to watch football because they're intrigued that Taylor Swift is
I don't
there.
understand why people are coming up with negatives about her being a part of it. Who gives a shit?
Exactly. It is rather odd because some people thought that maybe she was going to be the halftime show before they announced Usher. That would have been so wild. But she has her own tour to worry about.
I find it entertaining people's obsession with her and how people have created a timeline on what time she could leave Tokyo.
Right, yeah, jump on her private jet.
Get on a flight. And I think the one that I saw was like, her show will be over by midnight on Saturday.
And they're like, what, 13 hours ahead?
It's a 13-hour flight from Tokyo to the U.S.
Gotcha.
And she could take a flight after the show and be in Vegas by Saturday at 6 in the morning. So she could be there like a day before the game if she wanted to. So it looks like it's completely possible if she wanted to.
You know what? You maximize everything. You make the NFL pay for that private jet, don't you? If you're Taylor Swift at that point?
I think for us, yes, but she has a private jet.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think she thinks about money at all.
But I mean, like, still, when you're talking about like an appearance or whatever, why not? I mean, I know that you're a billionaire, but any way to not spend money, I suppose.
NFL would be like, yeah, we'll pay for the fuel.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, whatever.
I think that's a fair compromise. But your thoughts on that game? Because like it literally looked like the Chiefs were daring Lamar Jackson to beat them, and he just couldn't.
Were the Chiefs daring Lamar Jackson to beat him by passing, or did the Ravens change their game plan?
Right. It seemed like, I mean, they ran the ball only 16 times. That's 15 times fewer than their general average, which is pretty wild. And when you think about some of the mistakes that they were making, and just like why Lamar wasn't breaking out and passing. I mean, we all know that like play that he had where the ball gets tipped up and he catches his own pass and then he runs it for, a few yards or whatnot, which was an insane play. But I know that the Chiefs were rolling out a good number of different looks, and I think they were trying to create a lot of confusion, which maybe it did, but it was kind of like, what we hear in the NBA all the time, where it's like, and especially because we're in Portland, we know the Blazers and all this other stuff, it was kind of like take away Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum and make everyone else beat you type of a thing. It seemed like they were just take Lamar away and prevent him from doing, and that's it. And they weren't worried about anyone else.
I think you certainly cannot take any credit away from the Chiefs' defense for what they did during that game. But I would place the blame on Baltimore's coaching staff. Because everything you've done throughout the season has led you to this. Why fucking change your game? This is not the time to be proud. This is not the time to be like, Lamar, you need to prove that you're a quarterback, that you're not a running back. This is not the time to change your game plan. If you think about the game, the Chiefs didn't dominate. They won by a touchdown.
Yeah.
There was a fumble in the end zone where Flowers could have scored.
Right.
That would have tied the game. They didn't get blown out. The Chiefs have been, or the Ravens have been dominant throughout the entire season. They could have easily won that game. But it was like, hey, Lamar, stay in the pocket. Let him be. Let him play the game that he's been playing all season that got you guys in the conference championship.
Right.
And it's like they didn't do that. They changed it.
Yeah, there was like no razzle, no dazzle, no nothing that like when you think about Lamar Jackson and how he has gotten you into games, how he has won you games, what you prepare for to be in that game, it was, to your point, like it was a changing of game plan or it was just Lamar Jackson seizing up in the moment.
Like Dak?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Lamar Jackson's 2-4 in the playoffs. Like outside of like maybe one half in the playoffs, he's looked like dog shit. And I don't know if that is him. I don't know if that's a game plan thing. I don't know if they're overthinking it. But I mean, it's like that's where they're at right now. And to have this possibly, I know that it shouldn't count towards like whether or not he should or should not get the MVP, but right now the odds have swung back to Patrick Mahomes as the presumptive favorite now.
It should be McCaffrey.
But yeah, it's like, Lamar Jackson now 2-4 in the playoffs, and it's like you might lose the MVP over it. Were you entitled in that game? You have home field? I don't know. It was just
it's so
odd.
Eerily similar to Dak Prescott. It was like you dominate the regular season, but Dak folds in that Green Bay game.
Yeah.
And it's the same way that kind of Lamar did it. The thing that is mind-blowing to me is you go into a conference championship game where the Chiefs are ranked 27th in the league in run defense. I mean, Lamar could have ran for 200 yards. But it was like, I don't know, him seizing up, coaching staff changing the game plan, telling him to stay in the pocket. I mean, you guys could have ran all over Kansas City.
Yeah. I mean, that's I had over 66.5 yards.
Which I think he got.
Yeah, let me check that one again because I can't remember if that one actually paid out. But he had like 20-something in the first quarter.
I think he rushed for around 60 or 70 yards in 8 tries. So that's like him barely wanting to run. That tells me that he could have rushed for over 100 easy if he was actually playing his game. Kansas City corners are really fucking good. Their secondary is really good. Their run defense isn't that good.
Yeah, and sorry, 1 second.
That's how teams have beaten them.
And, I mean, just because the Chiefs, too, when it comes to allowing quarterbacks to run, like Josh Allen had gotten over on the running as well. Let's see. He was in rushing 8 carries for 54 yards, the long being that 21-yarder. So he was under there. And I think that when you think of, like, Brock Purdy, in the next game, we'll get to that game in a second, but like Brock Purdy, at least in the second half, took the game as it was coming to him, and then we saw him rushing all over the field because that's just what the defense was giving him.
Yeah, that's what I think. I know we'll get to it, but I think that's what changed my mind about him is he, for a young quarterback, rookie or second-year sophomore quarterback, he did what he needed to do to win the game.
Right.
He didn't necessarily... Because I know that we kind of look at betting numbers, but a lot of that is analytics on what Vegas, based on your play, is predicting you will do. Brock Purdy's over-under on rushing yards was 7.5. And I didn't take it because I'm like, he doesn't run.
Yeah.
And then he had a run for like 20, and then he just kept rushing. This is when they were down by 3 scores.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, like he has adjusted his game to try and give them a chance. Lamar didn't do that. And that's part of your frustration and why he threw his fucking helmet, because he probably knew I could have done something different out there, and this would have gone to overtime, or we could have won. They lost by 7. They didn't get blown out.
What do you think it was, though? Was it like cockiness, entitlement? What was it? Was it just a bad day? What was it? I mean, or is it a pattern?
It would be stupid to think that it would be you being cocky. It's Kansas City.
Yeah.
They find a way to win. They're there for a reason. But I think it's preparation. I think it's planning. And I think it's him probably folding under the bright lights.
This felt like if there was going to be... Not if there was going to be a year, because like they're always in the playoffs. But when you're looking at like the Chiefs, the Eagles folding late in the season, the Chiefs now in the Super Bowl, but like it took them a while to really feel like they were in a good spot with all of their issues at wide receiver and such. It just kind of felt like a sneaky dominant Ravens team just could not show. And you feel bad for Zay Flowers too, because like he ends up, having 100+ yards, and then he's there to try and score there. Reaches out the ball. You should never reach the ball in that circumstance because it would have been 1st and goal. And you feel bad for that guy.
Like, remember what I said a few episodes ago? You could be this dominant team, but those it guys are game changers, good or bad. And we never even addressed that Lamar could be the bad it guy. It was like, who's around him? But he folded.
Yeah.
That's the difference between a team like the Ravens and knowing that you have a Mahomes in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he has never shown that he could be a bad it guy. Doesn't matter how the season has looked, how Kadarius Toney has completely fucked him out of games, how Travis Kelce hasn't scored a touchdown since week 11.
Right.
You let him get there, and you better you have your hands full.
Yeah, and then Kelce has, a touchdown in all of his playoff games so far. Had 11 catches in that game for over 100 yards. I can't remember if he has the most 100-yard games in the NFL playoffs or the most 10-plus receptions in a game. I think he beat Jerry Rice. He overtook Jerry Rice for most 10-plus reception games in the NFL playoffs.
I'd say either way, he's up in the rankings for both of those.
Yeah.
Just because of how many games he's had. I think that's where he kind of edges like Gronk, is the receptions and the yards.
It is wild how open that guy can get. Just like, and I think that it's in part because Patrick Mahomes baits corners and safeties. Got like, it will maybe like get a safety to like to come in a little bit to like get a little bit more room for him. Something like that where there's like some kind of a tell to bait them to free. But that guy's huge. How do you lose sight of that guy all the time?
But you look at the other tandem that there's two other tandems that kind of had the same thing with them, where we were constantly asking like, how the fuck is he always open? Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, and Gronk and Brady. And it's, I think, when you have that type of familiarity with that receiver, you've spent so much time with him, played so many games with him, they're no longer, and even Kelce said this, like, they're no longer just running routes they were assigned to. They're running routes based on their quarterback. I think that's why it's mind-blowing how much Kelce is open, how often he's open.
Yeah.
Because he's going, okay, like, I could run this route, but
he's anticipating.
He's anticipating, and he knows, oh, these other guys are running this route. I know if I go to this spot, I'll be open and Patrick will find me.
Right.
And it's crazy to think, like, how do you not have anyone around you? And they plan for him based on these routes, but still, no matter how many times you see it, they're so familiar with each other that they're just playing backyard football.
One thing that, like, we were watching this, obviously, with a big group of people. I didn't realize that Jordan had such hatred towards the Chiefs, and how he's not necessarily in the minority there. And like, where does the overall hatred, do you think, come from with the Chiefs?
Being a dominant team.
Just winning.
Yeah. Like, how many times did you hear people hating the Chiefs before Mahomes got there?
Yeah. I mean, I on my side of things, as a big baseball fan growing up, I always hated the Yankees. But the Yankees is like, oh, they were like buying championships and, they were always winning. But I guess it was in part because they always won, is that I hated them so much.
Jordan is just a magnified version of a fan of the sport that hates whoever's dominating at the time.
Yeah.
The only people you heard about hating the Kansas City Chiefs before Mahomes' era are Raider fans.
Yeah.
And they start winning, you're like, I don't want to see them again. It is no different than hating the Patriots during their run. It's no different than people hating Alabama during their run, people hating Duke, the Cowboys, the Yankees.
Yeah.
It's that, like, the Chiefs were loved, unless you're a Raider fan. Priest Holmes, Jamal Charles, Alex Smith.
Yeah,
I mean,
Charles.
that team was either under the radar, never talked about, or you were indifferent.
Yeah.
But since Mahomes got there, it's like, oh, them again? Like, I don't want to see them in the fucking Super Bowl.
And I do suppose, like, I did see so many, like, pump-up videos for the Ravens, basically just using Brittany Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes and Taylor Swift stuff just as ammunition to hate them a little bit more.
And it looks like it worked for Kansas City and not for Baltimore.
Yeah.
I did see the map of the U.S. and says, this is who the country is cheering for. And it's like a lose-lose Super Bowl. It's like California's cheering for San Francisco, Kansas City is cheering for the Chiefs, and then everyone else
hates
I
it.
don't give a fuck. I don't want either of these teams to win.
I feel like Braxton was even saying that a little bit, wasn't he? Wasn't he just kind of saying that he's just like, and we'll get his take next week, and maybe he was just being reactionary. But I feel like he was just basically like, I'm not even interested in this Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, but, when you look at it was the AFC Championship. It was the most watched NFL game, aside from the Super Bowl, ever.
And I think his take is no different than how everyone else feels. It's two dominant teams, even though the Niners haven't been that same Niners team.
Yeah,
there's still a reason why they have a lot of bandwagon fans, is because they have been dominant.
Which takes us to another dominant team in the 49ers, which had been in 4 of 5 NFC Championship games and now are in yet another Super Bowl. And a lot of people just crushed over not being able to see the Detroit Lions in that game. Up 24-7 at halftime. Whether, decisions to go for it or not go for it, to fold the way that they did, we were robbed of the possibility of seeing this for a franchise, a city, a group, to just have that happen in the way that it did. It's not just that you went out there and you got your ass beat. It's that you basically gave that game away.
What is, in your opinion, what's worse? The Ravens not beating the Chiefs or the Lions not beating the Niners?
The Lions, 100%. Because the Lions had it. The Lions had it. And what I think is confusing, and we can talk about this because everyone has been talking about this and we were talking about it during the game, was just kind of when to kick a field goal and when to go for it. And so Dan Campbell, with 4th and I think it was 3 or 4, at the end of the first half, they elect to kick a field goal, which, he said we just didn't necessarily feel confident at that position. You want to get the points. But imagine if you went up 28-7 at halftime, how demoralizing that would be. And then in the second half, to go for it, to I feel like they analytics themselves to death, and Dan Campbell got in Dan Campbell's way because he goes, this was our identity. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to win and die by that. But you have to think of the situation. Had you have traded 3 points for 3 points and not gone for it in the second half to then tie the game, versus get the first down, and then you're still in a hole. You're only going to get the ball back one more time after that. They put themselves in a bad position multiple times, and Dan Campbell understands. He said after the game, I know that this is I will get scrutiny for this, but I think that he feels like he can live with it.
I think obviously everything's hindsight, and I get that in a different stage, it might sound hypocritical from what I said earlier, but if it worked, we would have never questioned it. Right,
exactly.
But the same way that I spoke about the Ravens and how your gameplay during the regular season is what got you here, at some point, and this is what played against Dan Campbell, I think, at some point when you're in a game that big, and it's a game to get to the Super Bowl, or you're in the Super Bowl, you have to be able to make in-game adjustments to your favor. I think the Ravens fell short of doing that. And I think the Lions, outside of coaching, he was sticking to his guns on what got him there. I understand that. But you got a glimpse of it against the Cowboys. And it's you have to make smarter decisions when you're playing a really good team at this stage in the season.
Right.
Kick the fucking field goal. You lost by
goal.
3. This is not the time to take a gamble. You have to do for sure things, guaranteed things. And yeah, we don't know if they would have made the kick, but give yourself the chance to not lose this game. I think when you're bringing up being cocky earlier, I think they got cocky.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw it with C.J. Gardner-Johnson waving goodbye to the fans after they
Yeah,
went up
not a good look there
24-7.
to do that in the first half. Not at all against that type of a team.
I'm not against taunting and shit, but I'm you better back that up. The same way that Zay Flowers shoves someone after the first catch.
Yeah,
I think they
taunts
might
that
have gotten
guy.
cocky by scoring right away on the first drive. But Man, for the Lions to blow that lead and let Brock Purdy, a non-running quarterback, to fucking scramble all over them.
Yeah, that was definitely not in the game plan because they, you know, when you sag off and you're so focused on not getting beat in the secondary because of how exposed they have been in the past, to then allow that many running lanes, they go, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
We were not anticipating that wrinkle within him to do that. He's never done that.
The only thing I would take off of Dan Campbell a little bit, I mean, the calls were questionable. You should have made calls in favor of your team to try and protect the lead. The only thing I wouldn't put on him is some of those fourth downs that he went for, there were a lot of drop passes.
Yeah.
That's not on him.
Reynolds had a couple of drops, and some of Goff's balls, like, sucked.
Yeah.
Some of them, like...
There were a lot of drop balls.
Yeah.
That's not on the coach, because technically we wouldn't be here talking about them like this had they caught those passes.
Yeah, Josh Reynolds definitely let him down a couple of times. And, yeah, I think that, like, when you look at that, like, if you're a Lions fan, and this is kind of this age-old argument that we've had about, would you rather have won one championship and sucked for 50 years after that, or always been in the playoffs and, like, that whole thing? If you were going to tell a Lions fan, in hindsight, like at the beginning of the season or whatever, that, hey, you're going to get to the NFC Championship game, and you're going to be up, but you're going to blow that lead. Like, is that, like, one, are you down for that type of a season? Are you thinking it's a successful season? And would you take that as a Lions fan when you had all of this heartbreak and all of, all these down years?
I think they would, because this is just a different type of heartbreak. Yeah. This is just heartbreaking, but your team's good enough. They're good enough to break your heart. Before, they're so bad that they just broke you every time, and then you kind of got used to it. This might be worse in a sense, where your team's been good enough to make it a game before the big one, and then they lost. The thing with them is I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they have built a good foundation that this isn't going to be a one-hit wonder.
It is. I mean, and Dan Campbell talked about it after the game. He told the guys in the locker room, like, I don't know if we'll be back here. Do I think we'll be back here? Yes, but do you know? Absolutely not. But they do have that young core of guys. That's correct. Who knows what's going to happen with Jared Goff in the long term. Ben Johnson, we'll talk about here in a second, is staying as offensive coordinator, so they do have that. But, like, the Lions aren't necessarily going to be a team that sneaks up on anybody. No. And, they've progressively gotten better every year. They went from a team that was in the cellars of the NFL to not even having a primetime game 2 years ago, to finally this year being in primetime, and then finally winning your division and getting in the playoffs and getting the NFC Championship game. You're not sneaking up on guys.
Their key players are either rookies or young. Yeah. I don't think they're going anywhere. And that is the one thing, as much as I love a Dan Campbell type coach, a more less X's and O's and more, it's all about heart and character and all that shit. This would be like, this is the only time where I would knock that. It's like, I know why he said what he said. I don't know if we will be back here. He's kind of trying to use that as motivation.
Sure.
Like, dude, just figure your X's and O's out.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do. Like, you have gotten your team based on your coaching style to the point to where you guys got to this year. Try to, like, study a Kyle Shanahan or somebody that's really good with X's and O's, and you put that shit together the same way that you're asking your players to work harder for next season. I think we'll see them back.
Yeah, it is interesting. I feel like the types of decisions that they made, because these types, like going for it when on fourth down and all of that, and being this aggressive, has not really been a thing until really the introduction of analytics. Yeah. Analytics, should you go, should you kick, all of that. And I feel like, and this is what led to the demise of Brandon Staley with the Chargers in part, was just an over-reliance on analytics. And I feel like, again, when you look at the situation, the time, the place, the momentum, all of that, like analytics can't adjust for that. Analytics is a computer decision. So like regardless of all of that, you have to understand the feeling of all of that. The situation, and I feel like in a way, and I already said it, is that like you saw Dan Campbell get in Dan Campbell's way. He almost like felt like he outcoached himself in those
Football
moments.
is such a game of feel, and sometimes you have a game plan, but you have to adjust that game plan based on what you see and what you are experiencing on the field. To rely solely on fucking stats, on analytics is stupid. And I get the push for it because no fan likes a punt. I mean, when we're playing video games, we don't punt, right?
Yeah.
It's the same way that this is now a high-scoring league. It's offense-driven. They want points. They want a chance to convert the fourth down. I get when you're like on your opponent's 30-yard line. Yeah, like could you kick a 40, 50-yarder, whatever, or go for it? But because of analytics, people are going for it in their own 20.
Yeah.
On their own 30. That's just dumb. I mean, isn't there another side of analytics telling you that's fucking stupid? Because if you give them bad field position by having a punter, a really good punter, that's better for you.
Yeah.
Then what are they telling you that it's okay, that it's a good idea for you to go for it on your own fucking 20?
Yeah. As much as I do love the study of numbers and the, leading to my decision, there's still an amount of feel that you have to go for. And the idea that you're going to just rely on analytics is, to me, it feels like a lack of personal accountability at that point. Well, the number said go for it. And there is like I said, as a person who loves analytics, to then do you have the ability to navigate through that and still make the decision and say, I understand what these numbers are telling me, but I can't go with that.
If you're a coach,
lacks that personal responsibility.
If you're a coach in the NFL, are you saying analytics told me to do this? And are you thinking that if it doesn't work, your own fans are gonna go, well, that's analytics' fault. No, it's your
it's
fault,
your
motherfucker.
fault.
It's your call. So make the call that you feel is right in that moment. The thing is, if you're in that position, I do understand that whether you follow analytics or you make your own call, there's fans that you can't make happy. And yes, they are paying your bills, but they'll be there. Just do what is right for the team and what you feel is right.
Yeah.
The computer shit is dumb.
Yeah, you were right there, and it's so unfortunate because it would have been great because there's that lead up that you would have had for those 2 weeks. Even if you lost in the Super Bowl, you would feel better about just having gotten there. The 2 weeks that you would have had leading up to talking about your team and your people and your family and your city and your community.
Don't ever get.
Yeah, and so I'm not saying that it's just the participation award for getting to the Super Bowl, but I mean it's that opportunity would have meant more for probably any city and any fan base, any franchise than it has in recent years. Outside of maybe
Cleveland.
Either Cleveland or when the Saints hosted the Super Bowl in their own stadium after Hurricane Katrina or something like that, right? Like something crazy, how something like that went. But
it's just unfortunate. I really wish that we would have seen the Lions.
Yeah.
It's rewarding because it's not easy to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, we've seen it. A dominant team like the Ravens just loses the game before. You have been playing so well, and it's not easy to get there.
Yeah.
It's really tough to get there.
Yeah. And then I saw, ask the Dallas Cowboys, who have been trying for the last 30 years. I saw an article basically saying, Jerry Jones is going to be going all in 2024, 2025. It's what have you been doing, dude? What is
3 decades later,
Yeah,
now we're going to
now
go
you're
all in.
deciding to go all in.
And what's all in? Keeping Dak.
Right.
Keeping the
Mike
same
McCarthy.
everything.
Is Dan Quinn going to get a job? Who knows? But we know that Ben Johnson. Actually, before we get into that, and we'll talk a lot about the Super Bowl next week. But the one thing that I just wanted to say, kind of based off of that game, is that if the 49ers get first half Brock Purdy, the Chiefs win that Super Bowl. If they get second half Brock Purdy, 49ers win the Super Bowl. And I think that, and we'll talk about that more next week, and we can still discuss it now. But I mean, the ability for Purdy to adjust the game and to just not get rattled and to lead that back was so impressive. But it wasn't a good look there in the first half.
I'm not gonna take any credit away from that guy. I think he was really impressive during that NFC Championship. The difference between that game and the Super Bowl, he doesn't have Dan Campbell planning for him. He has Andy Reid planning for him. And what's the DC's name?
Spagnuolo.
Planning for him. He's not playing against Jared Goff. He's playing against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. And Steve Spagnuolo, who just did that to Lamar Jackson.
There's going to be a very tiny window for mistakes. You throw a pick against the Chiefs, if the Chiefs were up 24-7, you're not coming back. Do not rely on you pulling the same shit against Detroit. They're up by 2 or 3 scores. You are not winning that game.
I was listening to some other national radios before, leading up to this, and they were talking about just what Spagnuolo did during that, to Lamar Jackson. I think they rolled out 6 different defensive coverages in that game just to confuse Lamar Jackson as much as he did. It was almost like a system overload where all of a sudden you're running, zone and then 4-3, and then all of a sudden you just keep on mixing up coverages to the point where it's I don't know how they're trying to attack me at this point.
I think the Chiefs secondary is so good that I would already take Ayuk out of the game. I don't think he's getting shit.
Yeah.
I don't think Debo is going to be Debo during that game. I don't think Kittle will be the same Kittle. I don't think Purdy will be the same Purdy. You better ask McCaffrey to do everything for you because he might be your only chance.
Yeah.
I think it's all going to be on McCaffrey.
And when you get those opportunities, when you see a guy who's wide open, you better not miss.
It's going to be, his window is going to be so small. Trent McDuffie, all those guys in the back, they're lightning fast and they're smart. I don't think, and I hate to talk about the Niners like this because they're the number 1 team for a reason.
Yeah, and they're favored, not by a lot, but they're favored. But
there is something to be said about no matter how the Chiefs' regular season has gone, there's something to be said, the experience of a team that's been there year in and year out, and they're there again. I would be terrified of them. They know what to do in that moment. They know how to adjust in that moment. If the first half didn't go their way, you better watch out for them in the second half. They're just so familiar with each other, and they know how to adjust.
Patrick Mahomes has very rarely been an underdog in his time in the NFL. He is 9-3 or 9-4 against the spread as an underdog. When you get the Chiefs in any situation, especially in the playoffs as an underdog, it's hard not to take money there. Yeah. It really is. And especially to think that Mahomes is not necessarily the reason why you're there. Mm-hmm. When you think about how good the defense has been for the Chiefs, and as a guy who had Patrick Mahomes all year in fantasy, they were winning games in spite of their offense. They were winning those games despite their wide receivers dropping those balls. They were in those games, and they were winning those games because of that defense.
That defense, and you can reduce Patrick Mahomes to a game manager. It's still better than most.
Yeah.
If he's becoming a game manager, he's better. He's probably the best game manager there is. I think the biggest addition to them that is no stranger. I mean, we've seen him blow up last year, but having a running game with Pacheco is such a difference maker for that team.
For sure.
You know, Tony, MVS, they could drop balls, but Pacheco, the way he runs, the way he can guarantee you 70, 80 yards rushing and a touchdown, that is a huge game changer for anyone they play against.
It feels like the Chiefs are better when Tony is injured, quote unquote, because
Such an idiot.
because that guy goes on Instagram Live the Saturday night before, and he's basically like, I don't know if he was like high or drunk or just pissed, but he's talking about how he's not injured and how they're making up injuries, blah blah blah. But I mean, it's like, dude,
your team's looking out for you.
Yeah, and they're also looking out for themselves because of all the, it's easier to say that you're injured than like, why isn't Tony playing? What is going on? Maybe they should put Tony out there.
It's such a stupid move on his part. This is the Chiefs' way of not embarrassing you. They are saying you're in the injured list so you don't embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
So you get on and question that. Like, they were looking out for you. They're trying not to tarnish your fucking name so teams would still want to pick you up.
Right.
But here you are fucking bashing them for looking out for you. You stupid motherfucker.
Yeah. It's like they are literally in the Super Bowl in spite of you. They won on the road in the divisional round in spite of you because they would have been home favorite had it not been for you being offsides in that game. All of that to say is that it has been impressive that, MVS catches that ball on fourth down, like going backwards and falling down. Like, those are times that those guys have dropped those balls earlier in the year. So it's nice to see things kind of coming around a little bit for them.
Rashee Rice.
Yeah, Rashee Rice. Absolutely becoming your number one at that point.
And when you have, like I said, when you have a running game with Pacheco, if a play action works for somebody like Patrick Mahomes, you're toast.
Yeah.
You give him an extra second for people to be open, it's game over.
Absolutely. And, so we'll talk more about the Super Bowl next week. Again,
who do you want to win?
Who do I want to win? At this point, like, my betting heart is telling me the Chiefs. Like as small, and I don't think that the Chiefs will ever become a favorite. They opened up a 2.5-point dog. Now here midweek, it's looking like they are just like, it's almost like a straight up game.
A pick 'em.
Yeah, so +1 right now. So yeah, I'd be interested to see, like, as injury reports go, like the Chiefs do lose an edge rusher or a linebacker. I can't remember now off the top of my head. So they do miss a guy who
tore his ACL.
So that's, no bueno for them. But yeah,
it's about as it's about as even as it gets. It's, and even not in a good way. It's like, I'm so indifferent about this game that I can just give reasons on why I would want each team to win or why I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Like last year, I wanted the Eagles to win. Not because I hate the Chiefs, but I'm like, hey, let Jalen Hurts get a fucking Super Bowl.
Right.
This year, it's like, if the Niners win, I would be happy for McCaffrey. I think McCaffrey's career,
definitely,
how he was hurt and the comeback and how he's been so dominant, I think he deserves MVP. I would be happy for him. But if the Chiefs win, it would be more like all these people that have been complaining over the last few weeks. I just want to stick it to them. You're pissed off now. I want you to be more pissed off.
More pissed.
Like, you're angry about the whole Taylor Swift thing and how their regular season has gone. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't mind if they win.
Right.
I think it would be funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, it would be funny. They would be insufferable, too. They would just have nothing to stand on at that point. But, yeah, it's like when you look at the 49ers have, again, as I mentioned, were in 4 of the last 5 NFC Championship games. They've been in a handful of Super Bowls. They've been right there. They didn't, have Brock Purdy gets knocked out of the NFC Championship last year with his arm injury. But now you have a Mr. Irrelevant who is only the 3rd player ever to play in a Super Bowl coming up. Obviously, the first quarterback as a Mr. Irrelevant to play in a Super Bowl. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm indifferent different because, like, you know, to look at, I mean, I grew up a 49ers fan, you know, back in the Steve Young, Jerry Rice days.
Oh, now you are.
No. I was like in 3rd grade. Give me that, okay? But no, like I wouldn't say that like exists now. So I would probably say that like I'm leaning Chiefs because I think ultimately, I think it would probably be, you know how we talked about how the Warriors championship like a year or two ago was like just like the most probably impressive one that they had because of their age and how they had to overcome and such. I feel like if the Chiefs do it this year, this would probably be one of their most impressive ones.
With how the season is gone.
With how the season is gone, and, you know, to get to this point, you know, that's just kind of...
I think what I would be more curious about, which is why I would lean maybe a little bit towards the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, I don't think that much will change with Kansas City. With how this season has gone for them, whether they win or lose the Super Bowl. But I would be curious with the star-studded San Francisco team, and if they don't win, if John Lynch blows that up.
Yeah.
I would be curious to see what type of chess movements they make. Like, who do we keep? Who do we get rid of? What's not working? Who do we draft? What do we
But I mean, isn't everything working? Like, it is working. Everything's working.
But it's hard to
imagine. It's not like you're just getting into the first round and then getting bounced. Like, it's working every year. It's just you're not.
But I don't think that's how a John Lynch, an NFL GM, looks at it. It's like getting to the NFC Championship and getting bounced doesn't mean it's working. For some eyes, maybe. But when you're at that, like, I feel like NFL GMs or coaching staff or the president of the team, that's not working. Like, why do we keep getting bounced? What's wrong? That's how you see teams blow up the entire fucking roster. But
yeah,
what really is going on here? Because we talk about the Chiefs defense. Look at the Niners defense. Greenlaw, Fred Warner, Lenore, all of those guys. You have Chase Young and Nick Bosa on your front four. Jesus fucking Christ, man. Like,
yeah.
Why isn't it working? And then we haven't even touched the offense.
Right.
Look who's on offense. Like, why can you guys not get past the conference championship? What is it? Is it quarterback play? Is that answered today? Like, is that answered this season? Is this it? But I think I would be curious to see if it doesn't work, if they blow it up.
Yeah. I don't think they would, and I would still consider it to be working. You know, just like maybe it's a schematic thing, maybe it's a depth chart type of a thing. I don't know.
You question your coach. You have one of the best coaches in the league.
No, you wouldn't do that. That's the
Granted,
thing.
it's McCaffrey's first year with, like, is it this first full season with them?
Yeah.
So he came in kind of halfway last year, right? So it's first full season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's like you were number one. You've had home field advantage. You get to the Super Bowl. Another reason I might root for the Chiefs. Apparently, during the construction of Allegiant Stadium, a construction worker, a fan of the Chiefs in the Chiefs Kingdom, had a Chiefs Kingdom flag that is now buried underneath Allegiant Stadium.
So the script is telling us it's Kansas City.
Yeah, the script is telling us it's Kansas City.
I mean, this is kind of a different, but on the same topic. If Mahomes wins,
yeah.
So I don't know what the exact stats are, but he's been in the league 6 years. He's been in the AFC Championship for 5 of them. So he's made the conference championship for 5 of them, and he's been into how many Super Bowls?
I think this is third, fourth.
Fourth?
Yeah.
I think 4 sounds right. If he wins 6 years in the league, 3 Super Bowls, where do you rank him?
Yeah. Because, I mean, when Tom Brady got there and then he was out for, years.
But, yeah, the thing with Brady is, the thing we cannot guarantee yet is longevity.
Sure.
Brady had that. And the fact that he won with another team in the late 30s beating Mahomes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a question of is Brady better than Mahomes or is Mahomes better than Brady. But where does he, Brady has 7. But, he played for how long?
Yeah.
To get 7.
Decades.
But man, like, can you lock a lot of shit for Mahomes if he wins his third at this point? Half of your career in the league, you have 3 Super Bowls.
It's insane. It's absolutely absurd.
You lock Hall of Fame, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, it's just you could retire the next day and be...
I think you lock top 5 quarterbacks, right? He's got to be up there.
Yeah, I wonder, like, you know, when you think about how long guys could play and how long guys ultimately will play, is like, do we think that Mahomes is going to ultimately play 2 decades? Or do we see that, like, there's the possibility a newer generation of player who is done at 35 instead of done at 40?
I think
if they're a guy who is in the league for a long time.
I think Mahomes has a better chance at longevity than quarterbacks in the past, including Brady. Because quarterbacks are so protected today.
True.
Like, if you watch old clips of Brady, you would, you know, people always say, oh, Brady's a fucking crybaby. A lot of these rules were made to protect him and all this shit. If you watch old clips, like if you watch 07, 06, 08, all of that shit, there were plays where Brady was scrambling and he would get blown the fuck up.
Yeah, it's true.
Like a hit that today would result into an ejection.
Yeah. Possibly suspension if there's a repeat offender type of thing.
And a lot of those plays he would get up. He wouldn't go to the ref. He'd get up and just, he's pissed and he's fired up.
Right.
That doesn't happen anymore.
I know, yeah. When Jadeveon Clowney hit Mahomes a couple of days ago, and then he ended up getting like punched in the face that one time, an inadvertent punch. Like, we were kind of looking to say, like, oh, does Clowney get ejected for targeting there? Which obviously, like, it wasn't, but I mean, like, the way, like, to your point, is how reactionary we are to protecting quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think he's more protected. I feel like, you know, even the low hits or the late hit, even if it's light, it's getting called for roughing the passer. So I think he has a better chance. He's more likely that he plays longer because of that. But I don't know, man. Like, some of the old, like the Montanas and the Youngs of the world, like, those guys were taking fucking hits like crazy. And Mahomes is not experiencing that today. But
Lindsay has been a little bit more attuned to the Chiefs, obviously, because she's a Swiftie. And she had told me, she goes, does Patrick Mahomes always walk like that?
That penguin fucking waddle?
Yeah, just like a valley girl, just kind of like very hippie.
He's a penguin.
Yeah.
He is just a waddle boy.
He's a big old waddle boy.
He does that. He has a lot of mannerisms that are really funny. Like, he does that thing like after a play.
Yeah.
Like with his left hand. I think it's almost like he does it subconsciously. He's not calling for anything. I think he's just like, what are you stretching here? What are you doing?
What is this? It's an involuntary movement that he does. And I'm sure that we all have those. And but yeah, it's like he does walk kind of funny, but maybe that's part of his longevity. A couple of news and notes in the NFL. Ben Johnson, as we alluded to a little bit earlier, Ben Johnson staying in Detroit, tells the Seahawks and Commanders he is off the market. He is staying. And I think it was because some people were saying that his contract demands were going to be a little too high. But I don't know. I mean, it seemed like he was going to, like, for the last 2 years has been this coveted guy, similar to Dan Quinn, but he's staying as offensive coordinator.
I don't see why he'd want to leave.
Yeah.
If you think about his head coach, that's a defensive-minded football coach. Ben Johnson most likely runs the offense.
Yeah.
What other situation would you have in the league that's better than what you have currently? You have a young core that's all your star players are rookies or sophomores. And they're really fucking good. You'll be back here.
Yeah.
If you guys, tweak a couple things, you'll be back.
I feel like he would have gone to like a Chargers type of a team. But when you look at like the cabinets there with the Seahawks and the Commanders, new ownership, number one, so you're wondering like what type of owner am I going to get? Are they going to be overly involved or whatever? Who's going to be my quarterback?
Yeah.
All of that. In Seattle, you've got Geno and you've got Drew Lock.
Who's going to be your quarterback?
And then ownership is kind of another issue, too. Like, Pete Carroll basically got forced out by saying, like, these guys aren't football people. Like, they don't understand. Jody Allen is just driving franchise into the shitter.
Ultimately, there's less question marks with Detroit.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's a great decision. There's less question marks with staying with your current team.
And you know what? Next year, there's going to be another 6 or 7 jobs that open up, and maybe you can just look again, and you're the belle of the ball. And, but like I said, I think he probably would have gone to the Chargers had that, the opportunity to coach Justin Herbert when you're an offensive mind like that. Like, you don't turn that down. Jim Harbaugh.
That's also another, there's still a question mark there, though, because as much as you'd want to coach a quarterback like Justin Herbert, how do you know what your working relationship is going to be with Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah.
He's gotten a taste of it with Detroit and how they've built it. I also would have stayed if I was him.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm basically saying, and I want to make sure that we're saying the same thing, is that, like, if Ben Johnson was given the head coaching position, not an offensive coordinator position. So it's like, the chance to be the head coach for Justin Herbert, because I know that he had interviewed with the Chargers.
That would make more sense, but I feel like he might feel like he's the head coach of the Lions. He probably runs the offense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. And outside of Justin Herbert, if he did get the head coaching position, I know that's completely different than being an OC. There's so many question marks with that team. Who is surrounding Herbert? What do they look like?
Yeah.
What does the receiver core look like? What's your running back core look like?
Yeah, I am curious, like, what Harbaugh, and now they plucked away Joe Horowitz or something like that from the Ravens to be their GM, so it goes from one Harbaugh to another. I'm curious how they're going to, take this roster. Whether or not they're going to dig in with these guys or try and get young guys. I could definitely see them go with more of a youth movement because Harbaugh is so used to the NFL or used to the college ranks, and maybe he feels like, hey, these guys would be more impressionable versus like a Khalil Mack and the Joey Bosa, right? And so who knows?
I would love, no matter what happens to the Chiefs this Super Bowl, if the Chiefs could get Austin Eckler, my God.
Something, I mean, the Bills also need they just need a running game in general. They need someone to answer that for them. But yeah, so Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers. Raheem Morris goes from the Rams to the Falcons. People thought that maybe it was going to be Bill Belichick who was going to get that. Now that the Commanders don't have their guy, is possibly Bill Belichick going to be there? I haven't really heard or seen any rumblings about that.
Since he lost the Falcons job, not lost it, but since he wasn't, they hired someone. The two teams that have been getting thrown into Belichick's way are the Commanders and the Giants.
Yeah. It's weird, though, because like when you think about what has happened to the perception of Bill Belichick in the last week, it hasn't been very good, right? Where people have speculated whether or not he'll be around for a long time, whether or not he's good to work with, all of this. And the idea that maybe he needs to go into the media business a little bit to try and like pump up his reputation a little bit, I think needs to be considered.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if all of this shit is like media assumption. I mean, we're looking at this one-sided, like nobody wants him or he might be difficult to work with. I think there's also a pretty good chance, super likely that he's being really picky. It's Bill Belichick. What if he's like, I don't want to coach here. Mm-hmm. I'd rather not coach right now than like go to this team and try to prove or build. Like, he doesn't need to prove anything.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to build something. Now, as a fan, where would I want to see him? I think it would be awesome to hear him in the media space. I mean, just that one, there was like this one, it wasn't even an interview. It was like not even a panel. I don't know, just a dialogue between two people. But Saban and Belichick talking about football was one of the best things I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was something that I heard was like maybe a coach cast between those two.
That'd be fucking insanely awesome.
Yeah, with like a host who kind of like helped guide them in and out of segments and such.
Yeah, it was like this thing that they had, this like it was a thing, segment on ESPN where Belichick and Saban was talking about, Alabama shit and Patriot stuff, and it like the cameras have already cut, but they kept rolling, like the interview was over, and Belichick asked something like, "Hey, why do you guys run this defense?" And Saban went into it in like the nerdy football mode. It was like, "Oh, we do this because it's good for this position and all that." And then Belichick was like, "Oh yeah, that's why we run this like this 4-3 because of this." It was like, if you love football, just to hear those two talk about the game would be incredible.
The huge value add to just like everyone's general understanding of the game and everything. But yeah, I am curious about the perception of Belichick. Is he being picky? Is he over, too difficult to work with? Is he too old? All of that stuff. But I guess we'll maybe see what happens. I think that the Seahawks will probably land on either Dan Quinn or the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, McDonald.
I thought Quinn was staying. Wasn't there something that said
Did they say he was going to stay? It's possible that he ends up staying again, too.
Where do you want to see Belichick if it was up to you?
I don't know. If this year or just in general, like let's think about like the next couple of years, right? Like, do you think that he could, he wouldn't be, what are like more defensive minded teams? And
I think the Jets.
He could go to the Jets. That would be insane.
Salah's
that would be so funny.
Salah's not doing it, and imagine that Jets defense coached by Belichick.
Bill Belichick with the New York media would be hilarious.
I mean, they're throwing the Giants name in there. I was like, put him with the Jets.
Yeah,
that defense is already good.
That would be really funny. That would actually be really funny.
Aaron Rodgers would love that.
Oh my God.
That defense would be even better than they already are.
That would be so silly. I don't know. I'm not sure that Bill Belichick is going to be a head coach again.
I'd say he will be a head coach again, maybe not this season.
Yeah. I think that the best chance is the Commanders, but something tells me that the Commanders and their new ownership and new leadership with Bob Myers, I don't know if they want that. And you have a very involved guy. And it takes like a very special organization to kind of give up that control to a guy. Then when you think, I'm going to be here for 1 to 3 years, the guy's 72 years old. I mean, come on.
Are people also just assuming that that because he was very much involved with the Patriots, that's how he's going to be with another team?
Probably.
Because, I mean, I don't think that's fair. He was with the Patriots for over 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had built that team along with Robert Kraft and everybody else. I don't know if this is another assumption or if he is actually saying, if you're going to hire me, I want control over all of these things. Like, the man of a few words. So we don't really know what he's thinking. I guess we're all just making assumptions.
Well, assume we shall. Before we go, I had a couple of things that I wanted to talk about the NBA, and particularly about like scoring in the NBA, because scoring has gotten pretty out of control. You're seeing games in the 140s all the time. You have guys scoring 70 points on a night-to-night basis, it seems like, where you have Luka scoring 70 plus, then getting like 50 whatever the night after. And
Devin Booker's had a run of like 60, 50 in the last few games. He has scored like 152 in his last 4 games.
Yeah, like obviously like the way that the game is being officiated now is
geared towards scoring.
Geared towards scoring as well. Let's see. I have a stat here from the 26th. This is the first time in NBA history that there have been 2 70-plus performances within a week. The previous had been with 13 days apart between Wilt Chamberlain had both. But yeah, Joel Embiid with those 70 points. Luka was 73. And then this is the first time since 1962 that there have been 4 60-plus scores in a week. All previous events happened with Wilt Chamberlain and or Jerry West. So you had Luka, Devin Booker, Karl Anthony Towns, and Joel Embiid. And there was this kind of story about whether or not like this NBA is more pleasing than old NBA. I wanted to get your thoughts here. Adam Silver, I think he's talking with Kevin Garnett, talking about this NBA versus like the 90s NBA.
Is the high scoring working? Because I want to know, will there ever be a time in our lives where the hand check comes back? Is that going? Is this kind of the wave in which we're going now?
I'll answer it coming from the fan in me, which is, and maybe data comes into play here because I can look at television ratings and other measures of interest. There was a point, I believe, probably in around the late 90s when the game became too physical. And I think we lost some of
our viewers, you mean?
Yeah, and I think for our fans, from the aesthetic enjoyment of the game, where it de-emphasized the particular skill a player had and maybe weighted too heavily physicality, where a big, strong player could come in and prevent a incredibly skilled player from doing those kinds of things. I think of, not that he's a small guy, but a smaller player like Steph Curry can do on the floor. I think that when you think of some of his ability to shoot, his ability to move through the paint, that if guys could just bang him and knock him to the ground, as that was once the case in the league, I don't think that would be a better brand of basketball. I also think we have to find the right balance, because I know when I sit in the stands or talk to friends sometime, they want to bring back, and we've tried to bring back a little bit more of the physicality. Like, I think people like to see hard defense. I mean, it goes a little bit before to what you and I are talking about, like touch and feel. Like, I don't think either people like that idea that guys can go through unscathed and like you're protecting your star players. And in fact, we made some changes this season where sort of, I don't know, the unnatural basketball moves, you know what I'm referring to, and where those were being players were gaming the system in a way.
Catching
on. Brilliant players playing by the rules had found ways where those were becoming defensive fouls. So we reset this year, which is something you got to do in the offseason. You don't want to change mid-course, but we made it clear, those players, that that's no longer going to be a foul. And of course, because they're the greatest players.
What do you think? Do you think that this brand
I have a lot of opinions about this.
This brand of basketball, number one, is aesthetically pleasing to the 1990s? Where does your brain go when you hear all of that?
I don't disagree with him. Number one, I think he is the best commissioner for the game. I think he's better than David Stern because he listens to fans.
He listens, yeah. David Stern was super stubborn.
He adjusts the game based on the feedback he gets from fans. However, I know that money talks. I know that ratings talk. I know that you're always going to gear your league, which is a business, towards what gets you the most viewers, the most money, the most sponsorships. I understand that. I understand why they've made the switch. Now, if you're just asking me as a fan of basketball, I grew up, my time growing up when I watched basketball was the 90s. The Penny Hardaway, the Grant Hill days. Back in those days, I'm always going to love that brand of basketball. And it's not about the physicality. I don't necessarily, as much as it's the nostalgic factor, and that's what I remember, I don't fight for 90s basketball because of the fights, because of the physical, the hand check and the elbows and all that shit. I fight for it because what I think they did with this new brand of basketball is they replaced the physicality by not calling violations to make it a smoother flow, a higher scoring game. And I mean traveling violations. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, man. We have seen, you question everything now. And it's gotten, I hate it for the kids today.
Yeah.
I hate it for the kids that are learning to play basketball today. because it has become so normalized that people argue and fight for it. It's a gather. Oh, when they're taking that ball, it's a gather. You can take 2 steps after that. No, motherfucker. That's always been called as a traveling. By the book, that's a fucking travel. A step back used to be you fake going to the front with a dribble, and then the most you can take is 2 steps back. You don't step forward, gather, and take 3 steps in the back. We've seen Carmelo take 7.
Yeah.
We've seen Russell Westbrook take 8.
James Harden.
Like,
insane.
There's a difference between gaming the game by doing the rip move and all that shit, or like leaning into the defender to get fouled in the 3, and straight up blatantly not calling traveling or double dribble or carry. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Like, that is my only problem with today's game, is they've replaced not calling those they've replaced those hard fouls by not calling traveling. That's why we get, outside of 0 defense, that's why we get 140 points a game from a team.
It's pretty wild.
Like, I've always said, you don't consider somebody a superstar if they only play one side of the ball. To me, James Harden is not a superstar. Carmelo's not a superstar. Yeah, I know you can drop 50. I also wouldn't be surprised if, whether this season or next season, that we get 100-point score. I think that's going to happen.
You do?
I think it's likely.
Think someone will outdo Kobe?
81? Easy.
Yeah.
I think if it's not this season, by the end of next season, not only will somebody surpass Kobe's 81, I think we'll get 100.
You know what's wild to me? I don't think that Steph Curry has ever gotten over 65 points. I think its career high is like 62 or 63.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Like, when I think about like guys who would be up there, I would have thought that Steph has had multiple 70-point games.
Yeah.
And maybe if like he was a little bit younger, like, and still performing in that way, that maybe he would be there. Or maybe that's just not his game. I don't know. But I was surprised to see that he's never had a 70-point
Is he
game.
capable of it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at guys who are constantly talked about, who either have done it or have gotten a chance to score 60, 70 or whatever, they're not point guards. I think Steph, like, being a point guard, there's still a part of his brain that's a facilitator, that he can drop 60, but he's dishing out 6 or 7.
Right.
You know, but like Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid, like, these are all first options that are not point guards.
Right.
Outside of Dame, you know, Dame's dropped 65 or whatever, but Dame's a scorer. Like, he's not a pass-first point guard.
Yeah, he's a scorer. And then speaking of scores, and one of those people who's had a 70-point game, Joel Embiid is on the verge of potentially not being eligible for postseason awards with the new load management rule.
I think that's great.
And the 65 games. Tyrese Haliburton as well, who has had a very good year for the Pacers.
I think he can't miss more than 3.
Yeah, like, I mean,
They're
not even
even
at the
All-Star weekend here.
Yeah,
Fuck, dude.
you are not even to February yet, and you are potentially not. And so that was the question that I had was, you know, are you, you know, Tyrese Haliburton came out and said, like, this rule is dumb. This rule is bullshit.
It's a great rule.
And we're seeing that. I mean, like, Joel Embiid, who was a favorite in the voting or in betting for the MVP, has now been downgraded to, I think, like 3rd or 4th because of the amount of games that he's missed. Even tonight against the Warriors, he was looking pretty hobbled. So, I mean, there's that potential that now Jokic could get another MVP because he's playing.
Well, let's be real. Jokic should have gotten MVP last year.
He should have, yeah.
It's not Embiid's MVP. Now, this is why I think Adam Silver is a great commissioner. I can understand the frustration of a player if they're really hurt. If they're really injured, at some point, if you're really injured, you're going to care more about being available for the playoffs and the championship than an individual award. Being all NBA or MVP or whatever, right? I get why you would be frustrated because missing out on some individual awards probably means you're missing out on some money, right? Or just the title.
Well, yeah, I mean, like it could affect, I think, like max contract situations as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I can sympathize with that. But what it's doing is it's getting rid of load management, which is fucking great for the fans. Because if you're really not hurt, you're playing. And that's what we want to see.
Exactly.
You play.
Mm-hmm.
So it sucks for the small percentage. I would assume it's a smaller percentage of people that are actually injured. But if to just sit out because you want to save yourself, no, fuck that. Like, because of the rule, you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great for the fans, the ticket buyers, people that fly somewhere from France to go to Milwaukee to watch Giannis.
Right.
Like, you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I think it's a great rule.
Anything else in the NBA? I did think it was funny that Doc Rivers basically in his like first press conference is saying, "I wouldn't wish this on anyone." It's like, dude, like shut up.
Yeah.
You're still like going to be coaching the one of the best teams with high expectations. If you didn't want this, like you are a coach through and through. You don't wish this on anyone.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I wouldn't wish that every coaching job I've ever had have had at least 2 superstars. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
What about clown-ass Draymond punching Anthony Davis in the face?
Oh, I missed that. What happened?
It wasn't... So, the Lakers-Warriors, it wasn't like the way he punched Nurkic. He was fouling Davis on purpose. This was... you didn't watch this game?
I didn't see it,
Lakers-Warriors went to 2 overtimes.
Oh, that game.
The Lakers won by 1, but he was intentionally fouling Anthony Davis. But in true Draymond fashion, instead of hugging him around the waist, his hands were so high that it smacked Davis right in the face. And then when the Laker players were doing this, like review it, he got angry and he's like, "Oh yeah, go ahead and review it."
Oh yeah, there.
It's like, dude.
Timeouts here for the Lakers. They don't have to foul yet, and Green does. I always think, how about have a couple of passes go through? Maybe you can force a turnover. Now LeBron James is furious. Darvin Ham wants a
you would if you see the foul, you would. That is a Draymond foul. That's not a normal foul.
So Anthony Davis, who just hit 2 huge free throws, goes back there again. He's 81% on the season.
Here comes Draymond. Damn.
Is that how you intentionally foul someone? Jeez. That's a Draymond foul.
It is. He has done nothing.
14.7 remaining. 1 point game.
You know,
get him out of the league, dude. Like, it's over.
I wonder if I can find this because someone, let me see, it was a spoof account because that was the game that Draymond, or that, is it this one? Maybe it was this one.
His Twitter page?
Yeah, it was, let's see. Oh, yeah, it was this. Because that was the game that LeBron James ended up winning on a go-ahead bucket, right?
It's he had 2 he got fouled.
Yeah.
And he had 2 free throws. They were down by 1.
But this was a fan account that it's basically Money 23 Green, not Green. And so a lot of people thought that this was real. It's been viewed 4.3 million times. And so everyone thought that this was Draymond saying it. And it kind of sounds like, because people have talked about him being a big LeBron guy, just a schmooze for LeBron. So this tweet, which is a fake tweet, it says, "It was tough trying to guard you for 58 minutes tonight, big bro, at King James. But 20 rebounds, a career high, and the game winner. So blessed I could witness it live, GOAT." And I honestly, when I read that, thought that it was real. I was like, oh, okay, hold on.
So you fooled a lot of people. 4.3 million views?
4.3 million impressions that this one got. And so tricked a good amount of people. But
it's just wild to think that he was suspended, and you would think you'd learn your lesson. He comes and the league lets him back in, and he's still the same guy.
I mean,
you haven't changed a thing.
No, I mean, like in the 3 weeks that you're away, it's just basically like a PR sabbatical, just to like let the dust settle a little bit. You're not going to change anything. This is who you are.
What does Adam Silver do if he pulls another Nurkic punch?
He's going to pull another Nurkic punch. And the fact is, like, did they even end up reviewing that, or because like Anthony Davis didn't like react to it, that they just paid no mind?
They didn't review that at all.
Yeah.
I think it was like because he didn't, in the normal Draymond fashion, that he would actually fight someone. I think when he fouled Davis and he hugged him, it was like, oh, that wasn't.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, there's no malice behind that.
Right, but had AD and them not been cool, he probably would have.
Yeah,
they would have reviewed it, and it would have been a whole big old.
It was
thing.
like the other Lakers, like Vanderbilt. I was like, dude, review that. That's what he was getting angry at. And I'm like, maybe tone down your shit. Like if you just came back from suspension, maybe like tone the shit down.
Maybe don't punch a guy or like elbow him right in there.
Like how many times have you seen an intentional foul, trying to stop the clock, that's swinging for somebody's face?
Yeah.
You normally put your hands out and you just touch them.
We've seen a good number of celebrities do this after their career, including a number of NFL players. Do you think that Draymond's ever going to step in a boxing ring? Do you think he's going to like pull one of those things where it was like, what was it, Le'Veon Bell and who else? Who did he fight? Was it Frank Gore or something stupid like that? Do you think that Draymond's going to end up getting in like a celebrity boxing match?
A celebrity boxing thing, not as a career. I don't think he would ever do like a Brock Lesnar or something like that.
No.
But a celebrity one, yeah, absolutely.
You think you would?
He loves the attention. That's why he does the podcast. That's why he, does the interviews and all that shit.
Like, you think he'd win?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
No.
His shit is knocked the fuck out?
His shit is based on rage. It's not based on like, I mean, I wouldn't know good technique, but I would tell you that Draymond doesn't have it.
Yeah, he's probably real wild with those arms.
I don't think I'd take Nate Robinson against him.
Hit him at the kneecaps. So, your Dukies and North Carolina that play this weekend. So before we get out of there, I want to get your feelings about that game.
Well, I'm glad Carolina lost tonight to a team that Duke lost to
Damon
2 weeks ago. Yeah, good for him. He has beaten Duke and Carolina, both top 10 teams this season.
And I think he's the first ever coach to do that in a rookie season or in his first year as a head coach.
Yeah, Georgia Tech is sneaky, especially with him as a coach. But Carolina, before that loss, is ranked number 3. Duke, before their win last night, was ranked 7th. So it's another top 10 matchup. This is in Chapel Hill. So they usually bounce. It's a February game and then a March game.
Right.
So Cameron will be next, or March. But it'll be tough. Carolina's playing out of their minds with their fucking old-ass team. Like, R.J. Davis been there like 4 years. Baycott's been there 22 years. It's going to be tough, especially playing away. And Duke hasn't necessarily looked that good this season.
I might just get you another cameo. I want Tyler Hansbrough on a weekly cameo appearance on the pod.
Tyler Hansbrough has been calling games for Carolina.
Has he now?
Yeah, so you'll see him, like, I guarantee you on Saturday you will see him on, like, next to the bench.
Interesting.
There was a Carolina game, I think a week ago, where they put him on the big screen. It says, AP National Player of the Year 2005 National Champion Tyler Hansbrough. And then the camera pans over to him and you don't see him, because there's a cheerleader split in the air blocking him. So he just goes,
hey.
He like moves to the side.
Nice.
He's like, hey, I'm right here. But he's definitely going to be calling that game for the radio station that they do. His dumbass will be there. And so will, like, a lot of alums.
Gotta love it.
It's going to be tough. But I hope Duke wins.
I know, for all of our sakes, because we're going to have our gentleman's dinner for gentlemen that night. We don't need you in a sour-ass mood.
Yeah. I'll try not to be. I usually get over it after. Here's the thing. You guys, you've been around me for a lot of Duke Carolina games in the last almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
I've faced bottom. I've hit bottom.
Yeah, we've seen it.
You know, the Coach K retirement year, that's bottom.
That was so bad.
That's bottom. And there was a reason why watching the Final Four, I didn't want to watch that around friends. That was not because I thought they were going to lose, but because I didn't want to risk how I was going to be.
Yeah, we needed to respect your space. Yeah.
That was a Duke-Carolina rare Final Four matchup for the championship on Coach K's last year. There's so much. There
so
was
many implications.
So much writing on that. It was and then losing at Cameron against them in the regular season. That was that's bottom.
Yeah, and then doing the Coach K celebration after that, which was so painful. And then he just basically rakes his teams over the coals while they're honoring him at his last game.
Dude, that was... And that's the thing. Like, a loss to Carolina every year will still be bad.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be as rock bottom as 2021. It's not going to be the same. So if they lose on Saturday... I'll be sour for like 10 minutes. Let me smoke a Black and Mild.
Yeah.
And then I'll
whiskey
be good.
Coke and you're good.
Yeah, I'll be good.
Nice little refresh.
But hopefully it works out.
Well, Braxton will be back next week.
Let's hope.
Yeah, I know. He does have to not get himself into Mexican jail.
He is, the
guy loves jail.
There's no guarantee, and he's in international waters. There's a lot of dangerous implications here.
Yeah, and a story that we will just need the full context to hear from him. But it sounds like he got himself into a really shitty situation.
Next week's episode might just be about that.
Screw the Super Bowl preview. And then we'll also probably throw down. We've got $300 here in the good old DraftKings account. I'm feeling frisky for next week. So
can instead of us doing it in honor of Braxton, you can edit me asking about this part too.
Yeah.
But just do the Coach Taylor Clear Eyes Full Hearts Can't Lose.
So what do we need to do? Set it up
We're
again?
not doing anything. You're just ending the show with the actual Clear Eyes Full Hearts Can't Lose from Friday Night Lights.
All right, I think I can do that.
So we're good.
That's it?
That's it. See you bitches next week.
Clear Eyes Full Hearts Can't Lose.